In Module 12, we're going to talk about cost behaviors. The specific lecture topics include the following: cost classifications and terms, cost behaviors and estimation, and how to use Excel and regression analysis to separate the fixed and variable components of a mixed cost. First, let's talk about cost classifications. We break costs down into two major categories: manufacturing costs and non-manufacturing costs. Now, manufacturing costs are made up of direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. Let me give you examples of those. If you're making a desk, you probably have some particle board, some formica, and some wood for the legs. Those are direct materials, and they can be traced directly to that product. Direct labor: for something to be direct labor, a worker has to lay their hands on the product or operate a machine that is making the product. So there has to be contact with the product itself. Manufacturing overhead consists of everything that is not direct material or direct labor. It would consist of such things as factory depreciation, factory supplies, supervision, indirect materials, factory rent, factory utilities, things of that nature. Now, the product cost is going to consist of these three components, and we'll be inventorying the manufacturing cost. Non-manufacturing costs are quite often called selling, general, and administrative. And they consist of such items as administrative salaries, sales commissions, office rent, advertising, things of that nature. Now let's look at these from a different standpoint. Let's talk about product cost versus period cost. Product cost term is synonymous with manufacturing cost. A product cost are those three components: direct material, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. Period costs are synonymous with the term selling, general, administrative, or non-manufacturing cost. And then we look at the term prime cost and conversion cost. Prime cost consists of direct material and direct labor. So if somebody says, what's the prime cost of that product? Direct material and direct labor, because those costs can be traced directly to that product. Conversion costs are direct labor and manufacturing overhead. And this is a very appropriate term, because what happens with direct labor and manufacturing overhead, we take the direct material and convert it to a finished product. Now you will notice that direct labor is both a prime cost and is also a conversion cost. Let's look at manufacturing costs in more detail. Again, the direct manufacturing costs are direct labor and direct material. Indirect manufacturing costs are synonymous with manufacturing overhead. So here we have indirect labor, which is supervision. We have indirect materials. Well, what's an indirect material? Well, let's refer to this table you're making again. You'll need glue to attach the formica to the particle board. You'll need screws to fasten the top of the table to the legs, and so forth. Indirect material are items that are very insignificant to the total cost of the product, and we don't trace them directly like we do direct material. Now, indirect costs are assigned to the products on a predetermined overhead rate because they cannot be assigned directly. Now let's look at the cost behaviors themselves. Fixed cost, variable cost, and mixed cost. A mixed cost is a cost that has both a fixed and has a variable component. So, how do these costs behave, and what's the definition of them? Fixed costs are costs that do not change with the units of production in the short run. So this means you have the fixed cost regardless if you produce an item or not. And what is the short run? Maybe, let's assume for right now that it's a year. It could be 6 months, it could be 2 years. Variable costs change with the units of production. So if you didn't produce anything, you wouldn't have any variable manufacturing costs. Here's a graphic representation of how these costs behave. You'll notice that the fixed cost line stays the same regardless of the number of units we produce. And as we produce more units, the variable costs increase. So we have costs on the vertical axis and units of production on the horizontal axis.